Hello, my name is Emily, and I'm the creator and host of this new podcast, which I have titled The Imitation of Christ in a Year. As the name suggests, I'm going to be reading the immensely popular spiritual classic, The Imitation of Christ, in 1 year. But the goal is not to start with chapter 1 and work our way through the book cover to cover, start to finish. Instead, I have the chapters arranged methodically based on topic to align with a goal. And the end goal is growth in holiness. I'm going to, in a way, carry the listeners through the 3 stages of the spiritual life, the purgative, the illuminative, and the unitive, using the imitation of Christ as a guide. The whole point of the imitation of Christ is Christian perfection, to which we should all aspire, and contained within the imitation is everything that conduces to Christian perfection, like the method of reaching perfection and its degrees, the means of attaining it, and the duties which it imposes. So the goal of this podcast is to read the imitation in 1 year, but not cover to cover. Instead, the daily readings are organized to correspond with and guide the listener through the 3 stages of the spiritual life. For this short introduction episode, I just want to briefly acquaint my listeners with the imitation in case you are not already familiar with it, and mention some saints who have been influenced by it. The Imitation of Christ is a work of spiritual devotion, also sometimes called the Following of Christ. It was written in the 15th century, first published anonymously in Latin in the Netherlands, but widely attributed to Thomas A. Kempis. The text is divided into 4 books, and its purpose is to instruct the soul in Christian perfection with Christ as the divine model. This imitation of Christ is the fundamental purpose of the Christian life. The Imitation is the second most widely read spiritual book after the Bible. It has profoundly impacted the lives of so many saints. St. Thomas More derived so much benefit from the book that he said it was important for every Christian to own a copy. St. Therese of Lisieux said, "It was the only book which helped me, for I had not yet discovered the treasures which are hidden in the sacred scriptures. I carried this little book around with me at all times." And that's kind of what we're doing here. We're making the imitation our daily companion. According to the Sisters of Charity, who have in their possession St. Elizabeth Ann Seton's personal copy of the Imitation, the book played a central role in her own spiritual growth. You can find photographs of the book online. Apparently, she wrote notes in the margins, and she and her spiritual director read the book together. And then lastly, I have here a quote from St. Francis de Sales about the Imitation of Christ. This quote comes from a biography of de Sales written by his friend, Bishop Jean-Pierre Camus. He quotes St. Francis saying of the Imitation, "This work cannot be sufficiently praised. A holy person now alive has said that the number of souls converted by its pages is greater than the number of letters in the whole book. It is an elixir and an epitome of the gospel. Within its tiny compass, it contains a great treasure resembling the precious pearl of which the gospel speaks." So the point of the Imitation of Christ is the perfection of the interior life through the knowledge and imitation of Christ. And this imitation of Christ involves both an internal transformation and external actions. Now, traditionally, the Church and the saints and theologians have always spoken of a necessity of passing through 3 stages to reach Christian perfection. The 3 stages through which the soul must pass are the purgative state, the illuminative state, and the unitive state, or union with God. What I'm going to do in this podcast is arrange the readings from the Imitation to correspond to these 3 stages, and then even go beyond that into the means of perfection. But to begin, we're going to start with the purgative stage. The purgative state is that in which the soul endeavors to purify itself from its sins and to quit the vices and evil habits that cause sin. I'm going to divide the purgative state into 5 degrees. The first degree is compunction of heart. The second degree is fighting against temptations. The third degree is advancing daily in the spiritual life. The fourth degree is extirpation of bad habits. The fifth degree is overcoming the passions. So that's the path that we're going to take. We're going to start in the purgative state with the first degree, compunction of heart. I'm going to start day 1 with book 1, chapter 21, which is titled Compunction of Heart. Compunction is awareness of guilt and regret for the wrong done and the pain caused. It comes from a Latin word that means to prick. This is where the idiom to prick someone's conscience comes from. It means to make someone feel guilty. That's the first step we take in the spiritual life, acknowledging our guilt, being aware and being sorry for the wrong that we've done. Each day I will read one chapter, sometimes two, which will correspond to the topic as we work our way through the 3 stages. So for example, we're going to spend 14 days reading about compunction of heart, and then we'll move on to the 2nd degree of the purgative state. I have a daily schedule typed up for the whole year, and I will share that on a blog so you can have it. At the end of each chapter, I will provide a practical reflection and a prayer, neither of which were written by me, but are provided in my copy of the Imitation. Speaking of my copy, The Imitation is a book that has been translated and published under so many different editions for hundreds of years. I will be reading from my copy, which is titled The Following of Christ, and although it has no specific publication date, it looks to me like it was published by the Catholic Publishing Company sometime between the 1930s and 1950s. It's an old copy that's fallen apart because I've used it so much, and I've actually had to take it in to be professionally rebound. I really like this particular copy, so that's what I will be reading from. And if you're reading along, it might not match your translation. Okay, that is all for this introduction episode, and I will be back in the next episode with compunction of heart. And I just wanted to say that if you want to support this podcast, then I ask you for your prayers. Please pray for my perseverance, that I can remain consistent in recording and posting these episodes.